The new Hyundai Palisade is very much like the Cadillac Escalade for Australia. Cadillac doesn't sell that super exclusive SUV here, but instead we get this. This is the refreshed Hyundai Palisade. I've already reviewed this car in depth before, but I've taken the liberty to go check out the new version here. So we've got a new exterior, some new interior features, and some slight changes to how this car drives. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Now there's only two models of the Palisade available from launch, the Elite and the Highlander. The Elite starts from just over $70,000, but 70% of buyers went for the more expensive and fully equipped Highlander model, which starts just over $80,000 this year. Now the physical dimensions of the Hyundai Palisade are largely the same, but some big changes have happened on the exterior, like this new grille and the hidden indicators that come with them. We still have a very similar LED daytime running light and LED headlamp effect here, but they just look quite good in this new grille design. Now our test car has been fitted with a 3.8 litre naturally aspirated petrol V6, producing 217 kilowatts and 355 Newton meters of torque. All this power is being exclusively sent to the front wheels. You'll need to get the diesel model if you want to get all-wheel drive. Now alongside it may not look like a lot's changed, but really the biggest changes are the 20-inch turbine wheels, which are wrapped in a Bridgestone tyre. And then we have this satin chrome that sort of runs around the side here, and I really like how it highlights the handles on this model, and this Abyss black paint looks fantastic. But there is a dark green you can get, which I think would be the absolute business if you did get that. But here we have a very executive looking SUV from the side. Now at the back we have LED tail lights, and we also have a little camera up here. This isn't your reversing camera, this is for your rear vision mirror. I'll show you what that looks like on the inside. I also do like the design of the light bar that runs all the way across here when you're braking. And then yes, we don't have a hidden wiper. I would have liked to have seen that to really clean up this exterior, but then also we have Palisade stamped across the back so you don't mistake this for any other Hyundai out on the road. And then down below that we have some very real tailpipes which look quite blocky and quite cool. I like to finish them a lot, and here's what they sound like. Look, I don't want to be dramatic, but this is the most luxurious Hyundai interior you can buy. And it makes sense because this is pretty much the most expensive Hyundai you can buy as well. You can see here my seating position is so comfortable. I'm quite laid back here, but then once you start everything in this car, your seat is brought forward, although we don't have any electronically adjustable steering column, which just seems a little bit out of place, especially when, you know, everything else is electric. But what we do get are plenty of premium materials in here. I love the leather seats, stitching, and there's plenty of soft touch plastics as well. And then you've also got like an Alcantara type headliner that runs around this cabin. My front seats are heated and cooled, and I have a heated steering wheel. We have a giant 12-inch display up here and another 12-inch display for the driver. Now the driver's display is semi-customizable. It does change with the drive modes, but I will admit when you're changing between the drive modes, those animations are looking a little laggy for an $80,000 SUV. And here in the second screen, we have some pretty normal features we'd find on every other Hyundai car, like satellite navigation, you have a 360-degree parking camera, all those sorts of things. And then we also have it tied up to a 12-speaker system in here, which is an Infinity branded speaker system, and allows you to just get more of a surround sound, and it does a really good job of filling this cavernous space. But then what we do have is passenger talk and quiet mode. So passenger talk allows you to use the microphones up front and then throw your voice to the rear third row, which is pretty good. And when you turn it on, it sounds a bit echoey in here, so people can hear you better as the driver, so you don't have to turn around and shout. Now you also have quiet mode, so people in the back, when they want to relax and just have a sleep, which this car is really well built to do, you can just send your audio up the front just for the driver. So if you're using navigation or listening to anything or taking a phone call, it just happens up the front. So that's a pretty useful feature considering this is meant to be a family car. Now we do have some piano black material around this cabin, and we have one with pinstriping as well. So there's a lot of lines going on because below that there's a lot of stitching, but then above that there's a lot of lines. So that's what's going on here. I do like the continuous vent that goes all the way along here for your aircon. We have some nice fat buttons, so you're never going to get confused about which button's which because they're big and easy to use, and I can guarantee if you're wearing gloves you can easily operate this cabin if you're going on a snow trip. trip, for example. Now, what I will say is the little screen for the climate controls is just a bit too dim and it glares too much when you have the sunroof open sometimes, so it can be a bit hard to read. And then you also have a giant dial for your drive modes down below and buttons for your transmission. Now, here in the center console, we have some cup holders that sort of make themselves known when you reveal them, and then you can tuck them away to make it just a nice big cubby. And you have some places to charge, and I also like the wireless charging pad because it's grooved and it's also made of rubber and it's flat, so it means that your phone will most likely accurately charge all the time, which it's been doing for me. Now you can hide this out of the way and you can open this giant center storage here with even more USB ports, and you can get another 12-volt socket in there as well. Now there are 17 cup holders in here. Yes, so there's ones in the doors, in the middle, all the way to the back, so there's a lot of storage in this car, and even another giant storage bin below with another 12-volt socket and another USB port. Now, talking about the camera out the back, we have a rear vision mirror here in the middle, which is just your normal rear vision mirror, but it has some buttons, and when you toggle it, it actually turns into a camera, and it's so great for nighttime driving, low visibility, and also just day-to-day driving. And if you want to load that boot all the way up the top, you can use the camera just to see all the way out the back, which is something we saw on Land Rover's products, but Hyundai have implemented here for the first time, and I think it works quite well. Now, above me are plenty of buttons, and they're worth talking about. We have an SOS button, and we have a Blue Link button as well. So this car's fitted with a thing called Blue Link, which basically means this car's connected to the internet, which means you can download the app, create a profile, and then track your car, and then even control the climate controls, and you can even do stuff like look at the weather forecast on your screen, and even link a calendar in here as well, so it becomes a bit more useful. So I like how Hyundai is trying to push their cars to be just a bit more useful than just, you know, just being your car. So that's something that's being introduced, but I'll be keen to see how many people actually use it. Now, the second row of the Palisade is the best seat in the house, aside from being in the driver's seat. This thing has rear heated and cooled seats. You have your own climate controls. You have a 12-volt socket back here. You even have a little blind back here as well. And you also have some more climate vents up top, some lights, and some more cup holders. And you have a little map pocket behind the driver. And you have two USB-C ports on either side of the driver and passenger seat. You have winged headrests as well, which means that you're getting the best nap back here if you choose to do so. And if you want to sit more upright, you can do that because these seats are adjustable. Now, in the center armrest here, we have the usual, we just have two cup holders, no center storage, and then you can fold that back up, and if you want to sit in the middle seat, you'll have a nice flat load floor, and that means that you can put your size 11 feet in between in front of you, and you don't have to be fighting for the feet space with either side of your passengers. So the thing is, this car would do a great job of carrying 5 adults with no problem for an extended period of time because of just how wide, flat, and how much space we have back in the second row. But what about the third row? Because this thing is an 8-seater. So check this out. To get in the back, you can press a button on the side and the seats automatically roll forward. That is just so usable and a lot more usable than some other 7-seat SUVs I've tested. Now, jumping in the back here, yes, we do have 3 seats in the rear, so this is pretty comfortable, and it means that you can go ahead and pull this seat back, and you can even press another button to help readjust the second row where it was before. Now, I am a bit more cramped than I am in the second row, and this is going to be a little bit of a sacrifice for people who have to cop the third row, but it's going to be good for smaller adults and for children. So you've also got some 2 USB ports back here, more cup holders, and then yes, we do have 3 seats. So I can pull this headrest up. How comfortable is headrest? It's pretty hard, let's be honest. In my headroom, yeah, it's all right. Hyundai have done a good job of sculpting out this roof here, and it's a nice soft material as well, so I'm not going to chuck a fit if my head actually does hit this roof. Now, even with the third row up, you actually have a usable amount of space. You could probably put a golf bag along here and maybe stack up 2. And then below this boot floor, you actually even have some underfloor storage, but this is really going to be used for the cargo cover and some smaller items, nothing too large. And then if you want to fold this third row down, it's as easy as pulling these tabs and they just lock into place like that. So that's quite good, and they actually are split as well, so you can carry up to 7 people and then use that 8-seat as an extra bit of cargo. Now, what I do have here folded underneath and what my bag is holding up is a carpet which neatly covers up all the grooves in this boot space where the third row would go. And there you go, you have a very plentiful and flat load floor, and it's a very nice space as well, and it's a very easy load floor to get in and out of, and I do like the scuff plates here in a bit of aluminium. But it doesn't stop there. You're probably buying this car because you see the potential in buying a Hyundai Palisade and never have to compromise in getting a van or a second car to carry all your stuff. So let's check out what the second row has to offer. So there's two buttons here. So these seats in the second row fold down electronically and they fold in a 60-40 split. I'm a bit disappointed. I would have liked to see 40-20-40 split in an SUV this big to make the most of the space this car is offering. So you can go ahead and press the right side down. There it goes, locks into place. Let's go left side down. How good is that? And then that means you can just jump in and throw everything you need all the way back. It's a flat load space all the way through. It's nicely covered up. There aren't a whole bunch of grooves for small things to fall in and out of. But what you have here is by no means an exaggeration, a gargantuan amount of storage space. And it's part of the reason why the Palisade is so popular here is because it does a really good job of carrying people, but when you also want to carry cargo, the space, the size, the square shape really makes this a fantastic option to carry a whole lot of cargo. And I really see this as the ultimate IKEA SUV. Now, all this beeping here in the background is the safety systems for the speed sign recognition in this car. It's the biggest problem I have with the driving experience in the Palisade because everything else is great. I love safety systems here, and you know that's something that I make very well known here at Product Review Cars, but the problem is that this safety system is just a bit more intrusive. It constantly beeps, constantly nags you, and it's sort of like not even having a policeman with you because this will read the wrong speed signs as well. So it will accurately read there's a 40km/h zone, but in some states like New South Wales, that zone isn't active. So then the car starts going, oh my gosh, you're going so far over the speed limit, bing, 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 will beep at you all the time. And then even if you go 1 or 2 km/h over the speed limit, the car starts to get a bit annoyed at you. And then, you know, if it doesn't change the sign in time for when you start to accelerate, then it starts going a bit annoying. Then it starts to get a bit upset and it starts constantly beeping at you, and it will also beep when the speed limit changes. So there's a lot of beeps and annoyances that go on, and the car's meant to be very quiet. So I go into the vehicle settings and I turn it off. But the worst thing is that it resets every time that you hop into this car. So look, that's something that I just wish Hyundai would fix. But aside from that, yeah, that's just the only annoying safety feature. Everything else in here is quite good, especially the lane keep assist, which I'm a big fan of. Now, in terms of acceleration, this car does a pretty good job on its pickup, considering it's a front-wheel drive, naturally aspirated V6. It's actually pretty fun to put your foot down. So you go ahead and it will deliver some actual power. It'll put it down. So you'll, depending on which engine you choose, whether it's a turbo diesel with a bit more torque, or you go ahead and pick the petrol V6 because it's a bit quieter for day-to-day use and obviously a little bit cheaper to run now that diesel's a bit more expensive than petrol at this time. Yeah, look, it's a good engine option. So what do we have aside from beeps and engines? Well, of course, we have a very comfortable ride. This is a retuned suspension setup, which is very comfortable. It does a really good job absorbing the bumps, and it just keeps the car steady, but also allows you to sort of just cruise like you're going on a pillow across the top of the road here. Now, yes, we do have blind spot cameras, which are very useful in conjunction with the rear vision camera, so it has great visibility outside this car. Brakes are also really well tuned in this car. They're very pillowy to go along with that ride, so it means that you can go along and just coast to a stop, and I really like that quite a lot. And it's very easy to modulate the throttle and brake in here to make sure that the whole car isn't lurching around, because it is a big car and the weight shifts will be noticeable, but instead the car does a good job sort of just gliding to a stop and gliding up to the speed limit. So I'm really liking that experience. Yes, a lot of safety systems in here, so when you're indicating, the blind spot monitoring also goes off. So look, yes, if you're gonna have a car look after you, the Palisade does a fantastic job of that. And what I really like is when you set the cruise control in this car, just like every other Hyundai car, you press the little steering wheel button on your steering wheel and it will automatically guide the car using active lane keep assist. It's one of the best in the industry, and I really love it here, especially in a big family car like the Palisade. Now look, my petrol consumption's been pretty high in this car. I've been averaging 15.5 liters per 100 Ks. That's pretty high considering I haven't been driving this car like a sports car. car because you can't really. There is a sports mode. I don't really see the necessary inclusion of that, to be honest. If you go into sport mode, it becomes a bit more responsive and you get a bit more out of this V6 here, so you can sort of, but doesn't really suit the character of this car. Being in eco or comfort does a better job of just cruising and making this V6 feel right at home. Don't get me wrong, it's an excellent car to drive, but no, it's no Kona N, or it's not a nimble SUV by any means. It is a big SUV and it drives like one, which is sort of the reason why I think it's quite appealing. And so what's happening under the skin of the Hyundai Palisade is that there has been a slight chassis rework, so it's a bit more rigid, and you've also got a bit more reinforcement in the B-pillar, so this thing is a bit more safe than the previous generation as well when it comes to impacts. And finally, what I really like about this car is the insulation. There's been added insulation in this car, and I tell you what, listen to this. So this is the active road sound outside. Yep, a lot going on. Pull this window up, and it's just it's actually ridiculous how quiet this car can get. And look, Hyundai didn't really have to go to this great lengths to make this thing that luxurious, considering the price point for what you're getting is really good against its competitors, but they really went the extra mile, and it's part of the reason why this is so popular. And I can see this being just the best a daily driver. If all you're doing is hauling people and cargo around all the time, you just want something that's going to look after you, the Palisade does it best. So it's a warmer day, hence why I'm wearing shorts, just to show you what the diesel model is all about with the new Palisade. So we're already in the middle of the in-depth review for the petrol model, but since I've already driven that, I wanted to see what it's like to drive the more oily version of the Palisade. So under the bonnet, we have a 4-cylinder turbo diesel unit. But the difference between the petrol and the diesel is that the diesel is all-wheel drive and it has more torque. So I just want to quickly show you why it's probably the better pick compared to the petrol. But aside from the engine and obviously this being all-wheel drive, the two cars you're seeing in this review are the same, except this one has a bit of a cooler interior, but that white leather probably won't stand the test of time in looking as immaculate as it does here if you have a family jumping in and out of this thing all the time. So yes, while it may look cool, and I do like this dark blue paint compared to the darker color on our other Palisade, I would probably say go for the dark leather, but this dark blue paint is definitely a good pick. This car is such an amazing value vehicle. I really think that Hyundai have nailed this second generation Palisade. One, the looks. This thing is a stunner. Two, the interior of this thing, especially this one, showcasing how luxurious you can get the inside of this to look. It feels fantastic, looks fantastic, and you know what? This has done nearly 10,000 kilometers and it's worn quite well, to be honest, even though I'm a bit skeptical about how it would look if, say, kids and all that were running inside out of it. It's gone through a few hands in the press fleet, and I can tell you what, it's looking pretty good. So unless Hyundai is wiping it down quite well every time it comes back to them, it looks pretty good in here. Now, the diesel engine, this thing has more torque than the petrol, it's all-wheel drive, and of course it's turbocharged, with a V6 which is naturally aspirated, and also it's front-wheel drive only. So the V6, I really like the characteristics of that, obviously because it's naturally aspirated, petrol feels a bit more responsive and it feels a bit meatier for a car like this, but yeah, the diesel's the one to get. That is the short of it. You have to get the diesel because you get all-wheel drive, which makes this feel more practical as a large SUV, say if you want to go in the snow or go on some dirt roads, because you have terrain modes in this thing. And really, you only want the petrol because you think it drives better than the diesel, or you're opposed to diesel. Well, look, also the fact that diesel is pretty expensive at the moment compared to petrol, I get that, and that is a genuine concern, but I would say you've already looked at spending a lot of money on a large SUV like this that isn't a hybrid or isn't electric, and I think that's just part of the cost of ownership when you're going to jump into something like this. Now, I am a bit annoyed that the diesel is a bit noisy, a bit grumblier when you're accelerating around town. It's something that you just get used to, but it doesn't sound as sort of fluid or as quiet as that V6. But really, the short of it is having more torque makes this thing feel like it moves a bit quicker. And I did take this on a weekend trip away up to the Blue Mountains, and just going up an elevation and driving at highway speeds, the diesel was fantastic across the range. Also, just the basic stuff this car comes with in the Highlander trim, like, you know, all your sort of radar cruise controls, your auto lane keep assist, all that stuff works brilliantly. You've also got that camera rear vision mirror, which is pretty fun. I really like the Palisade driving experience. Now, should you buy one of these? Well, Hyundai took a chance on the Australian market and wanted to see if we liked what the Americans like, and us Aussies do quite a lot actually. So that's why Hyundai have come out very strong with this second generation Palisade here in Australia. But what impresses me the most about this car is its value for money proposition. This, yes, is a relatively expensive car, but for the amount of car you're getting is pretty insane compared to its competitors. Now, the amount of space, the amount of comfort, the amount of creature comforts and safety features you're getting is pretty much unrivaled. And if you want to get a European equivalent from Mercedes, BMW or Audi, you'll be paying pretty much double the price to get this same level of equipment. Now, the downsides are that this engine has to haul around a whole lot of cars, so it's going to be pretty thirsty to run. And also, if you live in an area where parking is a bit of a premium or hard to get into, then this car is going to be a bit of a pain to live with. But if you're okay with those two things, then this car is an excellent daily driver. And I've had no issues parking this thing because I don't really live in an area where it's super tight, and I also have a garage. But if you don't, I think this might be just a little bit big for some. But overall, this is going to be the benchmark for the large SUV segment because we don't really have many American SUVs here, and this is pretty much the closest you'll get to it here in Australia. Now, thank you so much for watching. My name's Cameron. If you want to see more large SUV reviews just like this, make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.